There are many good points that you can find from that. Now, going forward, we're going to actually be starting next week in Genesis 35, I believe. So if you're going to get ahead on your study, that's where we'll end up beginning is, let me back up just a bit. That's just a verse that I have remembered, and it's not the case. We're going to get Genesis 28. And folks, this section that we're going to be studying next, you will rely on it the rest of your Bible life. It's going to be the birth of the sons of Abraham, of Jacob, and you need to know those because they are the folks that are involved in the struggle for the rest of the Old Testament. And she actually called the wrong number. It doesn't get any more hilarious than that. And so, not only that, I actually have her phone number on my phone, and so we will be contacting her again. But as we were saying, I'm sure that there are plenty of profane individuals out there in the churches that if they knew somebody was trying to give a piano away, man, they would be definitely jumping on that. I wonder if they're shipping it or would you have to go get it. That was quite hilarious. But on the same note, when we're talking about folk that are profane, notice this. If any man teach otherwise and consent not to wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, and to the doctrine which is according to godliness, look at this. This is how you know. Thanks for joining me. I am Johnny Robertson. We're here live on What Does the Bible Say? Great time to be alive in the neighborhood. Tom Hanks moved to where? Where did he move? Greece? Italy? Greece. And so, did you hear that? Control room? You heard it? You heard that he moved to Greece. Did you hear why? Well, pedophilia is legal in Greece, Italy. So, as I say, good time to be alive in the neighborhood. Lots of changes going on in the world. Let me start with this. This morning, you got warmed up from our broadcast last week. That was a little bit of a clip there that we played, and it gave you a chance to see where we were. So, it's all right. We had somebody walk in front of the camera last week in Reidsville. But since they were working for our Spectrum, we're going to give them a pass. And I think they did their new wiring down there. So we really could say that we want to put Comcast on notice if Spectrum is laying their fiber optic cable and doing the things they need to do in the North Carolina unit. Why in the world does Comcast not go ahead and do their work? And so this morning, I want to start this way. Now, this is a quote from Rollo May. Rollo May is a very well-known dead person. He had a PhD in clinical psychology from Teachers College at Columbia University in 1949. Now, he actually kind of went backwards. He had all these degrees, a degree in English. He had a degree in ministerial, a minister. And then he goes backwards in his career, or he decides to change, and he gets a PhD in psychology. Now, here's what he said. Perplexed people have to make sense out of their world, or their world will destroy him. Now, folks, got some perplexed people. Let me tell you, folk are really outside of, I don't know what to really say about it, reality, maybe. The behavior that people are displaying is, I don't know. I pulled off of Spruce, I believe it's Spruce, onto Mulberry. So I'm actually at the stop, Spruce and Mulberry. I'm at the stoplight. And there's a small car in front of me. A dude is inside the car, and he's a guy probably 65. And then there's another guy that comes up, and he's trying to get in the car. Right there on the street. He's jerking the door handle, trying to get in. I don't know if these two guys had some kind of altercation before I got up there, but I'm just saying, it's pretty weird times. I was at the intersection in Danville of
Piedmont, I guess it is. It's whatever the mall is on. And I was just like down towards Sam's, and I'm third in line at the red light. I'll be going towards Starbucks or the mall. I'm third in line in that red light. I'm sitting kind of in front of Goodwill, and all of a sudden, altercation breaks out right there in front of me. Evidently, this woman in this vehicle honked at the people in front. A white lady in the vehicle that honked. Two black individuals in the vehicle in front. They're young. She's kind of old. I don't know why she didn't roll her window up, but she left her window down, and first a dude is cussing her up one side and down the other, and then the woman gets out, not the woman that's in the car that is being cussed, the other woman. She gets out and she comes around, B-word this, B-word that. I was driving, she said, you shouldn't be honking, whatever. And I'm not saying anything about any of these people. I'm just saying people's rage level is now beyond like honking each other and maybe doing a little bit of following somebody for road rage. It's like get out and cuss them out right there at the window. The woman in the vehicle that had actually honked didn't have sense enough to roll up her window and behave. She ends up having to say something, and it's a wonder that you just didn't end up having a full-blown altercation. And I'm just sitting here watching that, and, you know, I'm thinking, okay, there's two cars behind me. What if that just spilled out to full-on altercation? What you supposed to do? Well, what my answer would be, I'm going to start driving my Dodge Ram so I can get out of there, you know, move on. And so it's a very strange time. And so I don't generally honk at anybody, never have. I just don't really think that that's very productive. And so lady level of rage has reached a perplexity. Their perplexity has reached a new daytime TV shows. It's because people actually believe in myths. And you need to realize when you're hearing a myth. Now, biblically speaking, you won't hear the word myth because in the King James it actually calls it a fable, but it's the exact same word. It's the Greek word for myth. Neither give heed to myths and endless genealogies, which minister questions. There's a lot of myths out there. It's things that your parents told you that were not true. And you might say, my parents wouldn't tell me anything that's not true. Listen, when your parents had you, they probably didn't know Abraham Lincoln was dead. They're so dumb. That's how it is when you have children. When I didn't have anybody, but when my wife had my daughter, I was 22. I said last week, I believe in a pulpit sermon that I was 21, but I was 21 when she was conceived. I was 22. My wife was 21 when she was born. Now, what did we know at 21 and 22? Not much. But for the next 6 years, we actually molded her mind. Well, how many myths did we put in her head? That's why we constantly tell you as young people, even as old people, you have to go back and you could, if your parents are still alive, you could go back and ask your parents certain things that they told you and ask them if it was really true. And they might likely tell you, you know, no, we didn't know any better. And so that's just one of the reasons why people have men, I don't know what women do, they have a change of life that is a body change. Men have midlife crisis is what they call it. And so why do they do that? It's because everything that we were told about life, when we get to be in our 40s and 50s, we find out, you know what, our parents didn't tell us. They had no idea. This ain't nothing like what it was, like what they said it was going to be like. If you eat your green beans and you do this and you do that, it'll all work out when you're 40. Baloney. When you get to being 40 and 50, you start realizing what life is really about. And a lot of people have midlife crisis. They sell their business and get themselves a convertible Beamer. Just all kinds of stuff. Why? Myths. But refuse profane and old wives' fables. That's actually the word for myth. Wives' fable, old wives' fables. There's a lot of wives' tales that's just not true. And I'm not downing on women. It's just the fact that the person who rocks the cradle, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Have you not heard? A lot of stuff people believe, they got it from their mother, and they just continue this downward spiral, or they continue believing in myths. So What is a myth? Happy ever after. You think everything's going to turn out happy ever after? If you are living like that, you're headed for catastrophe, because it ain't going to happen. And that's what our lesson is about today. We're actually, I believe I told you that we would be going from Genesis 28 to 35 today. And so that's what we're looking at here. We're basically letting you see all these passages that have the word myth in it, so that you can be informed that this is a constant warning about myths, fables. And so, here we go. Now, you know, some of the mania that's taking place, this is from Philadelphia Inquirer, so don't anybody get excited. This is not the National Enquirer, which is a rag. It's just, you know, not, they don't worry necessarily about truth. So this is August 18, 2020, and you got this picture, and basically the cartoon is saying, I told you not to poo-poo coronavirus. It's a play on poo-poo. It's a pun. And so look at this, what's going on. What is the deal with toilet paper? You know what I'm saying? That's my question. When you start talking about why people do what they do, you're talking about a virus. You know, a lot of times when people thought about a virus, when we were kids, or a lot of times when people end up having problems, stomach problems, and you say, well, what is it? And somebody says, well, he caught a virus, she caught a virus. What does that mean? You're going to be in the bathroom for 2 or 3 days. It's a 24-hour bug, 48-hour bug. So virus, I don't know. Did virus actually kick off the idea that everybody needs some toilet paper? But I'm saying it's mania. Notice this. Here's another of the Philadelphia Inquirer. This cartoon basically says, with coronavirus, the flu gets no respect. Now, can you lower my lower third just a little bit? So you basically have to see this. You have to see this virus face. And I know some of you young folks are not going to know what this is, but this is actually Rodney Dangerfield. And so it's Rodney Dangerfield's face on the virus. And he said, hey, I killed 10,000 Americans this season. The flu gets no respect. I tell you, no respect. That's his famous line. And so the Philadelphia Inquirer, they're fixing to put out information. They're about to put out information right here on the stats as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Now, first they're going to do the real flu, the regular flu. The CDC estimated Friday, this is from February 1st, CDC estimated Friday that 22 million Americans have gotten the flu this season. We ain't talking about corona, we talking about flu. 210,000 have been hospitalized because of it. 12,000 have died. That includes 78 children. Pennsylvania reported 1,311 flu-associated hospitalizations and 40 deaths through February 1st. So basically, we're getting CDC information about the flu season in America February. So as of February 1st, I don't know exactly when the flu season starts, but I'm just saying, if those are the stats, and let's just say that the flu kept going, and we put in February, March, April, May, June, July, August, so you got 6 months. Let's do the math. If the flu season continued for 6 months and you were having 12,000 individuals die in the flu season, as I said, I don't know exactly when they start the flu season. Let's just go ahead and say it was December. So that would be 3 months. A total of 12,000 people had died in 3 months. Well, let's just go ahead and extrapolate and say that that continued up every 3 months. You had 12,000 people die. We've got 6 months here. Where would we be? We would be at 36,000 individuals dying from the regular flu. So you see why Rodney's saying what he's saying. I don't get any respect, no respect. I'll tell you no respect. Why? The regular flu, because it kills a lot of people. A lot of people are infected. And 22 million Americans had been affected by February 1st. Now, was there this mania going on? Well, what causes the mania? There are a lot of things that can be said to cause the mania. So, here are some quick facts from that paper. What you should know about coronavirus. How many cases have there been? There have been 21 million in the world confirmed cases, 775,000 deaths globally in the United States. There have been about 5.4 million confirmed cases, 170,000 deaths. Now, let's go back. 22 million individuals were affected with the regular flu and 12,000 died by February 1st. Did you hear that in the news? No. So basically, 5.4 million confirmed cases and 170,000 deaths. So we're just, when you start looking at this, there's got to be some level of attention paid to that this is possibly being over-dramatized. Why would anybody over-dramatize? Why would they not over-dramatize? I just can't believe when people think about the news, they don't realize that the news is looking for something to capitalize on, so you'll come back, keep coming back. I mean, do you all remember Weather Channel? Weather Channel got caught having a guy have a fan, a big Universal Studio type fan on him, and he's like leaning and trying to act like the wind is blowing him or whatever, and somebody else just walked by behind him. And nothing happened. They were faking it. So in order to sell ad time, you think people won't fake? You think the news won't just... I know that there was a picture that there was actually a scandal over the fact that they took a picture of a hospital in China, and it was in one of the lineups on one of the cable news stations, and they were trying to say it was in the United States, and they got caught. So there's just all kinds of things that people will sensationalize. And so this morning, when you're perplexed, you need a stabilization. And so what I'm saying is, how about let's look at something that is stable. You know how long this book's been around? This is the best-selling book every year. You might say, no, New York bestseller is not the Bible. Listen, New York bestseller is not even in the same universe as the sales for the Bible. The King James Bible is the bestseller every year. It is I'm just going to say, and somebody can correct me and I'll correct myself later if I'm wrong. It is the longest in-print book there is. It was printed. It was one of the first books printed when Gutenberg came up with the press, and it has been being printed ever since, and it is the #1 bestseller in the world every year. So that doesn't mean it's true. I'm saying it's stable. It is a stable for the world. It's going to be here. It's been the New Testament has been around for 2,020 years. Now, not 2020. Jesus was 33 when he died, so take it from there, do your math. It's been around for 1,900 something years. Now, that's stable. That's something you can depend on. Is it true? Well, if you believe it is true, I don't have time for atheists this morning and to do Christian evidence and science that proves the Bible, but I want to talk to folks who are religious. Look, you can find your life in here, and you can find a life like what's going on right now. You can find out how much difficulty God expects you to endure. Well, how do you do that? You study the characters. And once you start looking at the characters in the Bible, you don't get to be a pansy. If you're a Christian, you need to recognize that there are example after example in the Bible that gives you what you should be willing to endure. Let me just tell this person right quick that's in Texas that I'm on TV. It'll take me just a second. I'm on live TV. I'll get back with you. So, where was I? You have these examples of what you're going to have to endure. Now, we were on Jacob and Esau. Jacob had successfully gotten the birthright, the blessing from his father, Isaac. We basically made Rebekah the heroine of that particular account. She was the person who was thinking spiritually. Isaac, all he wanted to do is have his belly filled. He had already seen Esau marry 2 Hittites, and he was still inclined to give the blessing, the seed line blessing, out of which Jesus would come into the world, to Esau. Ain't gonna happen. So Rebekah enters in. So we looked at that. This whatever that is coming up is bugging me. Does that mean that the cable's going in and out, or do you know? It is going out? It's not? Okay. All right. So basically, Rebekah is the heroine here, but as she enables the plan or fixes the plan for Jacob to get the blessing from Esau, it infuriates Esau. From Isaac, to get the blessing from Isaac, it infuriates Esau. And Esau says, when our father dies, I'm going to kill you. So she then tells her son Jacob, why don't you go to Haran, which is on the other side of the Euphrates, go to my brother and stay there a few days. That's the ending of that particular account. And so today, we're going to be dealing with Jacob going to the other side of Mesopotamia, and he eventually gets a wife there with her brother. But we're going to go backwards here just for a minute. We're going to go all the way to Genesis 34, which is towards the end of his stay with Laban. That's Rebekah's brothers. Genesis 31:42, this is a statement that is made by Jacob when Laban chases him down after 20 years of putting up with garbage and messing him around, which we're going to look at this as we go along. After 20 years of this, Jacob decides to go back home, and he leaves under cover of night, and Laban catches him. And this is what Jacob says, and this is what I want you to hear for a few minutes in regard to your perplexed life. Except the God of my fathers, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away empty. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. Now, what he's talking about is Laban had a dream the night before, and he was told, you better not do anything to Jacob. And so Jacob knows about the dream, and Jacob is also telling him, I know that you fear the God we serve, and you also fear Isaac. And if those two fears hadn't been with me, and if you hadn't had this dream, you would have sent me away completely empty. But here's our point. Jacob says, God has seen my affliction. Listen, folks, do you not know that God is watching this event? And it is extremely important. My phone is still recording me. It is extremely important that we recognize that, and that we recognize what is actually happening. Now listen, I'm not telling anybody what God's doing, okay? So don't even start with that. But I am telling you what's happening. If you're murmuring about coronavirus, let me remind you what's happening. Disney didn't have gay days this year. June 1st was supposed to be 30-year anniversary bash for homosexuality. Didn't happen. Well, then they started rescheduling it and trying to connect it with Halloween. And they were going to have like 3 different events or time frames where the homosexual community could come into Disney. Now, I'll be clear with you, Disney is not running this. The city of Orlando is doing this. This is an idea that the city of Orlando came up with because they got so much entertainment there. They put together this homosexual agenda 30 years ago. Universal Studio participates in it. They also had to shut down their stuff too. They were going to have horror night, and they were going to have that as a homosexual thing also, and not going to happen. And neither is Disney. Their stuff is not going to happen associated with Halloween and homosexuals. So that's done. Now, number 2, you can get on a website. I'm not recommending anything. I'm just telling you. There's a website out there. It's a guy or persons that they basically look at all of the events that atheists, humanists, and skeptics put together, agnostics put together in a year. Like you get on, it's called holykoolaid.com. I have no idea why they named it that. You get on there and you can see where all the atheists are going to be congregating, like Caltech in California, University of California, just all kinds of different places. Austin, Texas. So they gave it from January all the way through the end of the year, where these atheists or agnostics or both, skeptics, humanists, all of them are supposed to congregate in these big conventions. Well, guess what? You get on, cancel, 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 cancel. Skeptics, I was skeptical about them anyway. Skeptics. So hey, Corona did that. So you got the homosexual agenda is being shut down this year. A lot of the stuff that they were going to be involved in, not happening. Well, Christianity has been complaining about that activity for how long? Well, it stopped this year and we're still complaining. What if it's the case that this is helping our situation? What's the biggest platform for evolution? School. There is no bigger platform in the United States for evolution to be taught than the public school system. What's happening with the public school system? People are taking their kids out of the public system, school system in droves. What are they doing with them? They're homeschooling them. Are they teaching the curriculum that the science teaches? No. They didn't like that anyway. No more sex ed either. Oh, my word. You mean children aren't going to learn what to do at second grade? Man, all of this garbage that we've been complaining about, it's actually being shut down, and everybody is carrying on like there's nothing to be happy about or positive about coronavirus. I'm extremely positive and optimistic. I am thrilled to death that these entities are having to suffer because they have been perpetrating this garbage on us for 30 years. And a lot of it actually goes to that actual time frame. Now, the evolutionary period is longer than that. In the 60s, God is dead. You had that crowd that started out and prayer was out of school in 63. So here we are. God sees us. Listen, I'm not saying God had anything to do with this, but I'm basically saying if you're a real Christian, you can just mark it down that God has seen your affliction. There's not just one verse, y'all. This series of lessons that we've been doing, this has been one of the themes. In Genesis 16, when Abraham actually put Hagar out and her son Ishmael as a result of the fact that Sarah was upset because Hagar became pregnant. As soon as she became pregnant with Abraham's child, she actually started acting differently in front of Sarah. Sarah couldn't take it. They shouldn't have done this anyway. And Sarah says, get rid of the the bondwoman, my handmaid. So he did it. And she is weeping in Genesis 16. And look what the Bible says. And she called the name of the Lord. She called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest. For she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? So in that particular instance, if you know the account because we studied it, God basically provided for her. There was a well there that she didn't know, that she hadn't seen, and he provided water for her just at the point where she thought herself and Ishmael were going to starve to death. So God sees her, and she named the well after that same idea. I don't know exactly how to say that, Lohara. It could be that the L goes last. I forget. I'm actually doing that one by memory. But it comes up again throughout the Old Testament. So now notice this, Genesis 22, verse 12. Everybody knows the account of Genesis 22, verse 12. In Genesis 21, Abraham actually is in it again with Sarah about Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael is 15 or so years old, and something happens at the weaning of Isaac. The Bible says he was mocking Isaac. I don't know what he was doing. Isaac's a pretty small child. When you talk about weaning age, I have no idea. Foreign countries, Bedouins, I don't know. I know in the Marshall Islands when we lived there, sometimes kids were 4 years old and they were still being breastfed, and that is not a joke. I have no idea when the weaning time frame was, but he was little, and Ishmael was big, and he was mocking, messing with him somehow or other, and she saw it, and she said, get rid of the bondwoman and her son. It grieved Abraham, and he had to do it. He didn't have to, but he did do it. And you end up finding Ishmael then going down to Egypt and different places in Mount Seir and across towards Assyria. So why am I bringing that up? That's 21. 22, God then tests, the Bible says, Abraham and tells him, I want you to take Isaac, your beloved son. Now, he loved Ishmael too. But there was a problem that Ishmael wasn't actually from Sarah, and that's where the blessing was going to come. The seed line for Jesus was going to come through his wife, Sarah. They tried to work it out through the flesh and have Hagar have the baby, and Abraham said he wished that God would accept Ishmael, and God saying, no, it's going to come through Sarah. Now they have their child. And so we're at, again, about 15 years old, Isaac, and God tells him, I want you to offer this son as a sacrifice. So he takes him on Mount Moriah, puts him on the altar, ties him up and puts him on the altar, and he's about to slay him with his knife and be a burnt offering. I mean, can you imagine if he actually accepted that whole idea, the idea of watching your son burn? And so he was, slay not thing unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God. Here it is, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son. God is seeing this. And he says, I know you fear me. I see you. Seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And so the point is that God is aware of what's going on in our daily affairs. And just let me give you another verse. You know, we use this verse a lot. And I don't know if you realize, it just slipped my memory. 2 Chronicles 16:9. Now, we use this for the eyes of the Lord, or if you're reading from a American Standard of 1901, the eyes of Jehovah, the eyes of the Lord, run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Now, we use that verse a lot on this broadcast. Caleb and I both. We actually have a book out. It's not ours. It's an old book from the 1800s called The Eyes of Jehovah. But we just gave you this morning instances as we were going through these conflicting, perplexing times in these people's lives, especially Hagar, the difficulty she was having. And what does the Bible say? You keep hearing this reference to a naming of a well, and it has the words in it that God is seeing you. He's not like off somewhere on a trip. He is looking at the afflictions with which we daily deal. Now, Genesis 22:14, and Abraham called the name of the place, and I just get so tickled at these people that learn a new word, and all of a sudden they start going through the 6 or 7 different references, and they act like they have uncovered something. And they go through all these different words. I watched Jessica Robinson do it and Will Robertson do it over and over. They don't have any clue what is even going on. They just start using words that people had never heard of. Jehovah Jireh. Well, what was that? Call the name of the place Jehovah Jireh, as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. This idea that God is actually seeing, and he has foreseen, what this is talking about is, this is the same mountain that Jesus was crucified on. The city of Jerusalem is on Mount Moriah. And so this Jehovah Jireh is actually the definition, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. What shall be seen? The offering of God's only Son. And so this is a prophetic reference to what's going to happen on the same mountain, in the same location, or the Mount Moriah, and it is the place where David offered his sacrifice when he numbered the people and was punished. He offered his sacrifice on Mount Moriah, and the city of Jerusalem is on Mount Moriah as well. And so, basically, folks, during these perplexed times, if you don't get that perplexity fixed, what did the guy say? It said, if you live in a perplexed world and you don't figure it out, your perplexed world will kill you. It will drive you crazy. And so that's what we're basically trying to do this morning. We've tried to show you a few good things from Corona, and now we're going to look at some things that helped Jacob out, and he didn't really even have to do anything. Now, Jacob, we're going to see this even more clearly as we go along, because I'm going to get into, at some point, I'm just going to go through the different things that Jacob went through towards the end to show you, like, in a very bird's eye view, the things that God expects that you should be willing to endure. I mean, who are we? We're people that should not expect that it's going to be any different for us than it is these individuals in the Bible. They're not superhuman. They're regular individuals. And people that put them up on the superhuman pedestal are simply ruining everything. They are people just like us, and they make all kinds of mistakes just like we do. And do they get a pass? Yes, they get a pass. God isn't like rushing these people to hell. That's some Calvinistic idea that God's already chosen you before the foundation of the world, that you'll be saved, and that's just it. And then the rest of us are firewood for hell. It's not the way it is. These are real people. And so one of the things that Jacob had going for him when he actually went to Laban, even though Laban is way over in Mesopotamia and Isaac is in Palestine, Laban knows about his great uncle Abraham, and he knows about his uncle Isaac. And the man waxed great and went forward, this is Isaac, and grew until he became very great. For he had possessions of flocks, possessions of herds, and great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him. Now this is the account where Isaac goes down to live next to the Philistines in a famine, and he tells them that Rebekah is his sister. And so as the story goes along, they figure out that he hasn't been forthright. She is, in fact, his half-sister or his very close relative. She is the daughter of his father's nephew. And so where I've been in third world countries, they call nephews brothers and nieces. They don't even have a word for niece. They can just call them sister. And so, nevertheless, this is what ends up being said. He actually did so well that one year that they feared him extremely. And Abimelech said unto Isaac, go far from us, thou art much mightier than we. He actually had 100-fold increase to his goods in the next year, the year that they're actually eyeballing him. So his increase, it causes Laban fear. Like Laban is not going to, he's going to mistreat Isaac. Jacob, there's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to do it and pay attention just to how far he goes, because he does fear Isaac, because Isaac is a great man. So Genesis 26:34, get some age here. When all of this is taking place, when the two brothers, twins, are having this ordeal having to do with the birthright, and Jacob getting the birthright that was sold to him because his brother just really didn't care about spiritual things. He was a profane man, the Bible says. They're 40 years old when all this stuff starts happening. Esau has already married 2 Hittites, and the Bible says that it was a grief of the mind of Isaac and Rebekah. Now, what I want to point out here is Isaac definitely has a problem, and I'm trying to set the stage for you not to be hating on Jacob, because most everybody does hate Jacob. They carry on that Jacob is just some kind of demonic individual who tricked his brother, tricked his daddy. But I want you to really look at his daddy. Isaac knows that Esau is marrying Hittites. Hittites are some of the most abominable people in the Old Testament. They're going to end up being one of the 7 nations that the Jews cannot marry into, and they're supposed to wipe out when they come back from Egypt. And remember this, Moses wrote Genesis, and he wrote it at Mount Sinai. So these individuals are actually hearing from Moses as he narrates the life of their patriarchs, their great-grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers, all the way back to Abraham. So they're actually hearing Uncle Esau. He married married 2 Hittite women. And what's going to happen with that? Well, it's a grief to their mind, it says, but it's not the case that Isaac seems to be bothered by it. Genesis 27, verse 4, Isaac still says to Esau, make me savory meat such as I love and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau, his son. Now, give her a break, would you? If the mother actually sees that the husband is not being spiritual and that he's fixing to bless one of his sons, who the seed line is supposed to go through, the eldest, that's who the blessing goes to. I mean, that's just a setup. It is a set-up rule in the Old Testament that they're following. So he's fixing to bless him, give him the eldest son's portion, which is a double portion, and he knows he's married to Hittite women. And so she hears it, and what does she do? Now, again, we're showing Isaac's prosperity here. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great, exceeding bitter cry, and he said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. Now, at this point, he realizes what he's done. We just got through reading how great Isaac was. He was so great that the Philistines were afraid of him. His increase was such that they envied him. And the verse right after where it said they envied him, it actually said that his increase was 100-fold in 1 year. Now, that's not the same year as this happened. It's just basically telling you the increase that Isaac had, the goods that he had. And this profane son of his sold his birthright to his brother, his twin brother, for a mess of pottage, the Bible says. Food. They sound alike, don't they? Isaac is saying, bring me some of that venison I love so well, and I'm going to bless you. Oh, I'm thinking about venison. I'm not thinking about this. Well, what was Esau thinking about when he sold his birthright in the first place? Food, same thing. God is their belly. There's a lot of people around like that. But at this point, he wakes up. And as sad as the case is, as sad as it is that the case is this way, often people wake up when it's too late. And so he cried with a bitter, exceeding cry, and we all know that he then said that he was going to kill Jacob as a result of this. So We just saw that he got married at 40. So these two twins are at least 40 years old when this stuff starts taking place. And so here Jacob is going to end up, end up leaving home somewhere after he is 40 years old. So Esau has lost a lot, and he is planning on killing his brother. What do you say about Rebekah? Now therefore, my son, obey my voice and arise, flee thou to Laban, my brother, to Haran. Look what she says. She says, and tarry with him, turn away. How long was Jacob there? 20 years. She never saw him again. So, you know, folks, a mistake you could make, it's extremely important for us to realize that. Now you might say, boy, I don't know if I'm getting what you intend for me to get. I am trying to get you to get that this is the life of the people that God has in front of you as your examples of what it could be the case that you have to endure. You mean to tell me I could make a mistake that actually cost me the ability to see my son? My dad did that. He ran off with another woman. He was a member of the Church of Christ. He ran off with another woman. He never has, to my knowledge, he has never been in front of Caleb over 45 minutes his entire life. Like I would go out and see my father when I was in Texas. I would go by just simply to say to him, Dad, you're living in adultery. You know that this isn't not right. You know that you can't go to heaven living in adultery. 1 Corinthians 6:9, he knows it well. And I would say, when are you going to change? And each year I would go there, he would be older. He called me in his 70s. And he's basically not able to perform, if you know what I mean. And he says, we're not living together like that. Would it be okay for us to continue to live in the same house? And it's like, Daddy, why would you ask that question? You basically lived for 30 years with the woman in adultery. Now you can't actually have the contact and you still want to stay in the house and act like you're going to get a pass on that. If you get to do it, everybody else gets to do it. Well, we can't do anything. And how does that work? You see what I'm saying? So that decision that my dad made, my sister, she made the decision to stay with my dad. In other words, not to withdraw fellowship from him so that he would actually feel the pressure of getting his life right. She chose to go ahead and stay with him. So I didn't have any relationship with my sister, neither did my children. Well, you might say, well, what good did that do? It did a lot of good because my half-brother raped my sister's two children, two daughters. He's doing 200-year sentences now in prison. What if I had allowed my children to be involved with that family? Not going to do it. But you see what we're saying here? I realize that it is possible that a decision can be made by one of my family members where we don't ever see each other again. Happens all the time, but people just don't realize that it is a part of what God actually shows us can and often does happen, and it is a part of the Christian life. You just might end up saying, man, this is too hard for me. Well, don't do it. It's no guarantee if you don't do what God says, it's not going to happen anyway. I'm just saying, people are estranged from their family members all the time, and Christianity didn't have anything to do with it. Just people's crazy, weird lives end up messing them up. So if you're going to have to go through something like this, at least do it because you're doing it because God says so, and you're end up being blessed as a result of it. So Genesis 28:6, when Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, he sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Now, it is the case that Isaac said this, but it is not the case that Isaac came up with it. Rebekah is the one that came up with this. Rebekah told Isaac that she might as well die if Jacob married Hittites like Esau. And she offered the idea to send him to Laban. And then Isaac takes it up in verse 6 and says to him, don't marry women of Canaan, daughters of Canaan here. They're just a grief to me and your mother. She has expressed it, and Jacob already knows that his mother said this. She has told him, go and stay with my brother and come back in a few days. Well, he didn't come back in a few days. It was 20 years and she was dead. So he sends him away, and at this point, notice what happened. And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael. I need to fix this. I don't want you to actually miss this verse right here because it is extremely important. Let's get this. Esau sees what happens. Then went Esau unto Ishmael and took unto the wives which he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. So what does Esau do when he hears his dad say to Jacob, I don't want you to marry any of these women of Canaan? Well, he goes to his uncle and marries his uncle's firstborn daughter. He's trying to act better. It's not going to help him any in the sense of getting his blessing, but at least he's saying, you know, I can see that mom and dad don't want me marrying these Canaanite women because they're so crazy, they're so wild, and I'll marry one of Uncle Ishmael's daughters, our son's daughters, and that's what he did. So a lot of people don't pay attention to this, that he's marrying into the family line of Abraham, and it is something that he's trying to do that is a good thing. So these are the names of the sons of Ishmael by their name, according to their generation. The firstborn of Ishmael is Nebajoth, and that's whose daughter he actually marries. Now, again, we pick up Jacob at this point. We're moving into 28. Now, I said we're going to go to 28 to 31 is where we're headed, and we're going to hit high points, but we're going to just basically show you this could be your life. And when you see this life, you then back away and say, okay, I do get that bad things do happen. And when you say bad, bad is a relative term. Bad in the sense that you have to endure it, but is it bad? Is it really a bad thing that certain things happen? Well, it depends on the outcome. So Jacob leaves for Haran, and Jacob went out from Beersheba and went to Haran. He left without his inheritance. You might say, well, we just got through reading that he was blessed. He received the blessing that Esau was supposed to get. Oh, that's all well and good, but Isaac's not dead. And so he leaves out without his inheritance. And so he basically heads out, and that's where we're going to pick up and start actually doing our work this morning. He starts out, he goes to Haran, and everybody actually needs to see what he has to deal with. And when I say we're going to go to work here, we're just basically going to hit the highlights in our Bible program and let you see the kind of things that he had to deal with. And so let me do a commercial right quick and let you realize what we're doing. Let's see if I had that up. I didn't give you any information this morning, and so I want to give that to you. We're actually live here on What Does the Bible Say in the Martinsville studio. You can get in touch with me through these means. I didn't bring any books to show you this afternoon, or this morning, but many of you know the books that we give away. They're still available. They're free. You can text me 276. And I'm just telling you, name and town, name and town, name and town. I don't want to text you back. I have so many texts and so many emails and so many phone calls that it makes no sense for me to have to text you back when you don't tell me what you want. I just get a text from somebody and they give me their request. They actually give me their email address is what they did. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this email address? What do you want? So if you're not going to tell me what you want, then whoever that was, you probably realize that you've done it. Go back and realize that you sent me your email address. I don't have time for hi, how are you? Name and town, tell me what you want. Joe Blue is my email address, joeblue81@gmail.com. That's pretty simple, joeblue81@gmail.com. Make sure you tell me what it is that you want, that you need. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I want you to have what you want. Tell me what you want, name and town, name and town, name and town. Don't forget to put your address on there. So, appreciate you for being with us this morning. Now, back to our Bible program. So, we're picking up Jacob, and we're picking up your life as it could be. I guarantee you when we start looking through Jacob's life, you're going to be glad that you're not living Jacob's life. But it actually will help you from the standpoint of, we may have to endure a lot more associated with Corona. I'm saying, did you think that you were actually going to have your kids at home this school year? I know a lot of women that have actually quit their jobs and they're staying home with their kids. I say, good. When did all this start anyway? Right after World War II. all these women that were mobilized to work while the men were fighting World War II, the women actually continued to work, and the industrialization of the United States continued the upward trajectory, and these women stayed on the job, and who raised the kids? Who knows? I know all kinds of different scenarios, and how did kids start behaving? Well, that's when we went through the sexual revolution. In case you don't know, you may not be old enough to know, but all those women that were outside the home, children were doing something else. The school system was basically taking care of them, sports coaches and different things like that. They were the ones telling them, mentoring them, and the parents were, MIA, missing in action. And so it has continued ever since. And now the virus has turned that around, and many parents, one of the parents is staying home and homeschooling the kids. Guess what? Most homeschool curriculums, not most, but if you use a Becca, let's just say for instance, a Becca requires you to have a time frame of Bible study in order to graduate from a Becca. Well, a lot of people don't want to study Baptist doctrine, which is what a Becca is, and so a Becca doesn't make you study their doctrine, but they say you do have to have a Bible time in order to fulfill the requirements to graduate from a Becca. So guess what a lot of people are doing? A lot of homeschool people are using, this was before Corona, they were actually using our classes, mine and Caleb's, on Tuesdays at 10 and 11 and 12, Wednesdays 10, 11, and 12. They're using our Bible to supplement their homeschool program. Good for you. I hope your kids are enjoying it. And I know a lot of kids, I've actually met kids that came in from New Hampshire and Boston that were watching this and using it in a homeschool curriculum. Good deal. Now, Genesis 29, verse 15. What are we doing? Jacob gets to Padan Aram. He gets to Mesopotamia, and we have a look at him in 29, verse 15. Now, we can't just read this entire 2-chapter section. It's a lot of reading, but we can ask you to get a good handle on it. Genesis 29, 15. And Laban said to Jacob, now remember our last slide that was in our other slide presentation. I know I have that already up. Guess I don't. The last slide that we were using right there, his pockets are empty. He did not go to Mesopotamia with his inheritance. He simply went with his name. He is Jacob. He is the nephew. And Laban is scared of Isaac to a certain degree. But Isaac is way over, more than 7 days' journey from Padan Aram, so news travels slowly. It would be a long time before Isaac even heard of anything, if he even heard of it. And so this just basically is how things go. Jacob went out from Beersheba, went to Haran, same as Padan Aram. And in verse 15, we see that he is now discussing his wages, and that's where we want to pick up. Laban said to Jacob, because thou art my brother. He's actually really not his brother. He's his uncle. Shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? So we basically hear, we're getting a chance to hear the back and forth. Let's back up to verse 4 and 5. And Jacob said unto them, my brethren, whence be ye? And they said, of Haran are we. And he said unto them, know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, we know him. And he said unto them, is he well? And they said, he's well. Behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with her sheep. So they take him home, and in the introductory period, you actually start hearing them talk about, okay, we know you're up here for a while, and what is it that you want to be paid? Well, let's look at verse 15. And Laban said in verse 16, Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Now, let's have a look at that, just if you want to. We give away this Bible program free, and you can just hit your handy interlinear, and you can see the Hebrew words. And let's look at this tender-eyed business. Literally, it means tender. Figuratively, by implication, weak, faint, soft, tender. And so you get an idea. I don't know that this really means homely. It just means of a particular spirit and nature from those words, soft and tender. And then you have Rachel, and the word here is translated beautiful, and it's beautiful, literally or figuratively, beautiful, beauty, comely, fairest, fairest one, goodly, pleasant, well. So Rebekah was a beautiful woman. A king wanted her. Sarah was a beautiful woman. A king wanted her. And it appears that Rachel is like her aunt and great aunt. And so Jacob loved Rachel and said, I'll serve 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And so that's the bargain that they made. 7 years is what he's going to work in order to have Rachel to be his wife. So we drop down to verse 19. Laban said, it's better that I give her to thee than I should give her to another man. Abide with me. So they sealed the deal. Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days for the love that he had to her. So you're watching this play out, and this is really, you know, I don't know how you feel about this. I would not like this. I don't know if my in-laws are watching, but this is the way it goes. My in-laws were telling me that I had to wait. My wife was already 2 years in her college career when we started. I've known her all my life, but when we started thinking about each other a different kind of way, she'd already gone to school 2 years. And as I told you a while ago, I was 21, she was 20. And they were saying, well, she can't be married until she finishes college. Well, I'm a grown-up at this point. And as many of you know, I've already been in trouble. I've been in the penitentiary and out. And so I didn't much take to people telling me that I couldn't get married to whomever I wanted to marry, especially when they're of age. But my wife, and as many girls are, women are, they're have a mind, or they're in that position where they feel like they have to do what their parents say. And so I wouldn't have liked that if I had to wait 7 years. What if she wanted to be a PhD? And her parents had said, well, you're going to wait till she finishes her PhD. You know how long it takes to get a PhD? A lot of people end up going 7 years, 6 years, 7 years to get their PhD. So I'm just saying, we didn't have it hard at all. We ended up getting married anyway, and she went to college while we were married. So I'm looking at this, and you're looking at this, and we're basically saying, is this what we have to endure, something like this? Well, in Jacob's particular instance, he did. And so Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a great feast. Okay, we're about to have payoff here. I've worked for 7 years for this woman, and what ends up happening? Well, it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went unto her. Now, I don't know if you get this or not, but this is the custom. If you had been reading about Isaac and you've been reading along, you would actually see this is how the custom is. You have the tent, you have the actual betrothal, you have the promises or the covenant being made, and then you have the tent scene at night. And, you know, I don't know if you realize they didn't have electricity back then. And so it was a dark affair. And so Leah came in. He didn't know it was Leah. And he ends up realizing it in the morning. Look what the Bible says. It came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this thou done unto me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? Now, it could be, and I'm not this way, it could be that you say, well, that's what Jacob gets. I don't know where you get that kind of commentary. Well, you say, well, Jacob tricked Esau. Jacob didn't do anything to Esau. Esau sold his birthright, that which was precious to the eldest son, his ability to have double portion of his dad's goods, which were extreme, as we have just read. He did not think enough of it to not barter it away over a meal. And Jacob did not do anything. I don't believe Rebekah did anything that was of a nature that they would have to repent from. And if you had looked at this with me, you could see that Isaac was about to bless Esau, and Esau is a very worldly individual, marrying these Canaanitish women, and they're idolatrous people. They had all kinds of vices. If you read the Bible up to Genesis 26 and 27, you just see all kinds of stuff. They're of the tribe, they're of the family line of Ham, and Ham's son was Canaan, and Ham was cursed. Canaan, the individuals that came out of Ham, all those individuals ended up being the Canaanites and the Amorites, and they're the people that ended up burning their children in sacrifices. And so it's a very wicked group of individuals down to the fourth generation. By the time the children of Israel came back out of Egyptian captivity, their iniquity was such that God says, I don't want them to live anymore. And I used to hear Larry Serber, the atheist, he was just saying, God is such an awful person. Is there any difference in that, in us saying that the Japanese are basically at the point after bombing Pearl Harbor that we need to wipe these folk out, and they go and drop a hydrogen bomb, an atomic bomb, maybe both of them are hydrogen bombs, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? How many hundreds of children died? And how many thousands of adults died? So this God that you're hating on, is there any difference in between what he is actually doing, saying these individuals are so wicked that it's to the point where they need to be moved out? I don't really see any difference in that. And you might say, well, you're actually arguing backwards. No, I'm really not. I believe the individuals that were involved in making the decisions that, hold on just a minute. I'm doing a live TV program. So let me just take a break here just a second. Caleb, I'm sending this over to you. It's the lady that sent your wife a gift, FYI. So, if you're saying that Jacob is getting what he deserves, I don't know where you get this. Rebekah was doing a very good thing in that she was keeping Isaac from giving a blessing that Esau had sold. She was making sure, she was making sure that the persons that were spiritually inclined, if you remember Jacob, one of the things that's said about Jacob is that he is, the word that's used when his description comes up is the same word that is used about Job, and it's also used of Noah as well in Genesis chapter 6. And so these are things that you find out when you're looking through this. So what ends up happening? Well, what ends up happening is Laban just basically makes an excuse and says, our custom is such that the younger shouldn't marry before the older. And so he said, fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service, which thou shalt serve me yet 7 other years. So he's basically changing his wages is what he's doing, is you go ahead and serve me, and I'll give you Rachel, and you serve me another 7 years. So Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave Rachel to be his wife. So, and Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went also into Rachel, and he loved her, and loved Rachel more than Leah, and served with him another 7 years. Now, here is another instance of what you may be called upon to deal with. It's, y'all, it's difficult. When you really get down to it, things happen. So what have we seen so far? We have actually seen Jacob bargain with his brother, who is a profane individual that doesn't care about spiritual things. He bargained with him and got the rights to the birthright. He knows that his dad is not being spiritual. He's being fleshly minded, and he's going to go ahead. He's actually going to bless the son that is marrying these Hittite women. He doesn't know. I don't think Isaac knew at all about the bargain that Jacob and Esau had made concerning the birthright. If I had been Esau, I'd be ashamed to tell my dad that I sold my birthright for a meal one time when my brother had food fixed, and I just said, oh, I don't need my birthright, I'll just take this food. I'd be ashamed. I doubt he told him. I'm almost sure he didn't. Isaac doesn't know this, and Jacob sees that Isaac is going to go through with it. He sees that Esau is being dishonest with him, and is not going to honor the bargain that they made. You might not like the bargain. I can't help that. I'm just saying, Rebekah knows about the bargain as well, and she knows that Esau is marrying these Hittite women, and she knows that her other son is a good man. He is the son that is supposed to actually be over the elder. She had an oracle as they were in her womb as twins, that the younger would actually be over the elder, or the elder would serve the younger. So in the sense of her going through this process, I really don't see how a person could end up saying that Jacob got his just due. But I'm just telling you, that's what happened. He ends up getting the blessing, and it cost him seeing his mother ever again. He had to flee for his life because Esau became basically a murderer in his mind. And whether you think Jacob did anything wrong or not, did he do something wrong enough to be killed? And so the fury and the wrath that his brother had for him, he said, I'm going to kill you when our father dies. And so Jacob has to flee for his life. In the process, he's told, take a wife from our relatives over in Padan Aram. And so he goes there. He spends 7 years in a bargain to get Rachel as a wife. He's basically a servant to Laban. Laban welches on him or tricks him, and he ends up getting the other daughter instead. And he doesn't just get his wife then when he says, look, you tricked me. He says, no, this is not a custom that we follow, so you're going to have to serve 7 more years. You can have Rachel now, but you're going to have to serve 7 more years in order to have her. So you've got 2 of my daughters now and a handmaid. And so that's what happened. And then what happens? And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And so it ends up being a very difficult situation for them. And this is how life goes. Caleb, I wish you explained to her that I'm on television. I guess she does realize it. It's sad. But it happens. So we're seeing life play out in front of you. Now, do you get to curse God and die? No. Do you get to say everything is against me at this point? No. This is us getting a chance to see individuals that are in service to God. We're getting to see these individuals live real life. And it helps us to be able to go through this and look at them, what they're dealing with, and it just... we haven't reached this level at all. I'm saying as far as endurance, we haven't peaked out here in this story either, but I'm saying that's just what happened. He ends up getting the wife that he wanted, and she is barren. So we're going to move ahead then to Genesis 31, and there are a lot of things in between this. We'll get to them in a 41. Now, the 20 years is up, and Jacob has learned that Laban is such that you cannot trust this guy. So basically, when Jacob gets ready to leave, Jacob has been blessed greatly, just like Isaac has. He has a lot of cattle, he has a lot of camels, he has a lot of donkeys, he has a lot of sheep, and he has several children. He has 11 sons and a daughter. He doesn't have 11 sons yet. He's going to eventually, he's missing one. Benjamin hadn't been born yet. So he's leaving with a lot of substance. And he knows Laban very well, and he knows Laban's sons, and he knows Laban's servants. And they are basically all eyeing everything that Jacob has, because Jacob's life just continues to increase. And so when Jacob gets ready to leave, he knows that he's shown him in the last 20 years is that it's not going to be an easy parting. And so he leaves in the middle of the night. Now you might say, how in the world could he do that in the middle of the night? Well, if you would study, you would be able to see that they have like 3 miles difference between them, or 3 days difference, 3 days journey's difference between them. You might say, why would they do that? Because they had so much stuff. Their cattle and their substance, their livestock, it was such that you just couldn't be grazing the same piece of property. They had 3 days distance between them so that the land could handle all of these animals and you not end up having your livestock die. So if he's 3 days away, it's very easy for you to actually realize that that would be how that Jacob was able to get away, get a head start, and get away from Laban. But Laban catches him, and Laban isn't traveling with all of his stock, livestock, and all of his goods and all of his children. He is basically riding swift camels, the Bible says, and he caught up with him. And this is the confrontation that they have. So basically, that's what you're seeing. Now your father-in-law comes along after you've worked for him for 20 years, and he's tricked you 3 different times and tried to trick you the entire last 6 years that you worked for him. Thus I've been 20 years in thy house. I have served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the son of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. And God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you in a dream, is what we actually saw yesternight. So we're looking at this, and we're at that verse again where we started, what we said we were going backwards. God's been watching this the whole time. And, you know, you might say, what's the point in serving God if I'm going to have to go through these kinds of things? Look, God's been watching this all along. And the means by which Jacob actually increased in the first place is because God was with him. If you read the last 6 years, if you do go back and read the last 6 years of Jacob's time with Laban, you would actually read that God has been helping Jacob increase. He's been helping him with his ability to breed stock and manage his stock in such a way that he is outperforming Laban in a big way, and it causes all kinds of envy and all kinds of coveting on Laban's part. But God is also with him in this situation as well. He's 3 days away. He gets to get a good start. And when Laban catches up with him, then he confronts him back. If you had not been afraid of God, number one, you know that God's blessing me. And he actually had said that he knew God was blessing him during the time frame while they were together. He said, if you were not afraid of God, and if you were not afraid of my father, Isaac, who is a great individual in the area where he lives, you would have sent me away empty. In other words, you would have stolen everything that I have. And Laban answered instead of Jacob. Now look at this. This is really amazing to me how some individuals can be. Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or to their children which they have borne? Now, he actually accuses Jacob of stealing. Let's look at Genesis 31, and let me actually look at the verse. I thought I wrote it down, but I don't think I did. Genesis 31, and let's see where he actually accused him. This is verse 30. Let's back up to verse 30. Notice this. It's pretty amazing how individuals decide that you have stolen something, and now though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house. He's basically saying this to Jacob. I know you wanted to go because you wanted to go home. It's been a long time since you've seen your father. Yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Now, he actually says that he stole everything that he took with him. So he says that you've stolen my gods, and he says here in verse 41 that all of these things are his. And so it's really strange how some people look at things. One of the reasons that I'm hesitating right now is because I'm getting texts from individuals that are being affected by people that are telling them that I stole something from them. And so just let me take a pause here just for a minute. And if you are a person, and likely the lady who was texting me or private message will be listening to this, I haven't stole anything. The things that I'm being accused of stealing is actually coming out of the mouth of one person. And I'm just going to say this to you. everybody who's listening, if you take witness from one person and you expect me to explain to you what you're believing out of the mouth of one person, then I don't need your kind of Christianity. Everybody knows, even little children actually know who've been brought up in Bible class, that you have to have things from the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. You've got one person saying that I stole his cars, I stole his money, and I did things where he can't get other goods of his. Now that's one person's mouth. And if you expect me to explain to you based upon one person's words and a other individual who took his word, which is hearsay, and is publishing all kinds of garbage about me, I don't even need to talk to you. I don't need to hear from you. I don't want to be involved with any kind of Christian that will listen to one individual and ask me to answer questions about what that one individual has said. Now, you might be saying, well, this one individual has gotten other individuals, he's appealed to other individuals. Now, just wait a minute. The individual that we're talking about went for weeks using his one testimony, and his hearsay friend actually published that testimony of one person, and that's it. And many of you actually believed it, but many of you didn't. And so when I said something to you, for a while I was willing to talk to individuals who will take the witness of one person and the hearsay publications of another person. Then when he realized that he wasn't making headway, he started then calling up individuals and taping them and like prepping them to get them to say what he wanted them to say in a context that makes you think that it is actually factual. So is that the way that you actually work? You would allow somebody, first of all, just one person to testify of things that you did, that you stole their cars. And listen, really, if I stole someone's cars, and it's been 170 plus days, how could I be on television right now? If I came over to where you are and stole your cars, and in 170 days, could you not do anything about that? I'm saying seriously, if I stole your car and you actually know where they are, would you not be able to have the authorities fix that for you? So right there, that ought to tell you something's up. Evidently, there's more to the story. Now, there's more to the story, and you should actually hear from 2 or 3 individuals about what happened. Well, the person who published the one person's witness, he didn't talk to anybody here. He just took what the one witness said, he published it, and now you're reading hearsay. And if it is really true, then why don't they come and get the cars? I mean, all they have to do is call the sheriff up. You can't actually have stolen property, so why don't they call the sheriff up and get their property? Okay, there's something more to it. That's exactly right. And the money I supposedly stole, where was this money? Let's see, since we going into Reidsville? Did he actually make it where we're going into Reidsville? Can y'all hear me in the control room? Did he make a simulcast into Reidsville?
Yeah, we're going in.
Okay, I'm fixing to send a text. Mark, if you're watching, I would appreciate you calling in, and we'll fix a part of this right now as far as the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. So, you see what I'm saying? Now, if I stole someone's money, really and truly, if I stole somebody's money, could you not get the sheriff to actually act on that too? I mean, do you guys not know a lawyer? I actually know a lawyer that I'll recommend to you. I'm not going to recommend you my lawyer, but I know plenty of lawyers in this area. If I really stole your money, they could take up your charge, your cause. And once we get through with it, then for sure that money would never get back into your hands because you're not going to be able to prove that the money was yours. So if Mark McMinnis is watching and he calls in, we'll have an individual explain to you how these things work. And I'm just going to tell you the money that this one person who is saying that I stole his money, the money was actually in an account called Martinsville Church of Christ Preachers Fund. Now, if you have money in a church account and you're basically saying that's your personal money, wouldn't it actually beg to be questioned? Why were you keeping your personal funds in an account that is clearly a church account? Well, you don't know that kind of stuff. And probably you've never even heard of a thing called a work fund. Most of you preachers have never heard of it because so many of you don't do very much work. And know that in order for a person to do mission work, there has to be some ability for that person to do checking in a place that is not the place where his home is or where other individuals that are supporting him are. So that's how work fund comes into being. I was actually having my money that was being sent to me, sent to a place in Texas. And they immediately would send it into Virginia to a work fund. Once it gets into Virginia, then I disperse out the money that belongs to me into my personal account. Now, how did I steal that person's money if they claim that's his money? And evidently Mark is not watching, so the reason I was going to have Mark call me is Mark worked with us also, and so Mark.
Hey, John.
Hey, you know I'm on live, right?
Yeah, I just walked in.
Okay, so the question is actually, I just got a private message, and some individual is hearing for the first time about things that we're dealing with here in this area, and it's being told them that I stole this person's money. And I'm basically not using names, I'm just saying that it is factual that one individual, one witness, not the mouth of two or three, but one witness is saying that I stole his cars and his money, and individuals are believing it. And I'm chastising these individuals, number one, that if they believe one witness, I don't really need their kind of Christianity anyway.
Right.
And
it's not scripture.
It's not scripture. Everybody out there knows it's the mouth of two or three witnesses. And so you got one witness, and then you have a person who took the word of that witness, and then he published the hearsay. So you've got basically two sins being accomplished in order to put me in a position to where people think I'm going to answer. And so I'm really not. But I am going to give them this one moment. So Mark, when you retired, you had a work fund.
Yeah.
And so what did you do with the work fund, and how much was in it, if you can remember in round figures, when you retired?
At the time that I turned it back over, I don't know exactly what was in it. I'm just would say guessing there would probably be 1,000, maybe 2,000.
Well, your memory is pretty fuzzy. It was 9,500.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize that, but that fund was used for office supplies and, whatever work that I was involved in. It wasn't just my salary.
And so factually, Mark, I raised that money from individuals that were my supporters, and you were the evangelist, and you were single evangelist sometimes in Danville, and sometimes you were working with another evangelist in Danville. And so really the parameters for the money was very wide. It was, you used your car in the job, running all over creation, doing these TV programs. You had to have a computer. Charles does not supply our computers. And our technology, basically, he streams this stuff for us, airs this stuff for us, and we have to come up with matching technology. So that work fund was put together for you to buy all those kinds of things for a man who is beginning a work and keeping a struggling, fledgling work going. Now, do you think most preachers know anything about that kind of thing?
No, I doubt it.
Well, they don't. And so a lot of them cannot imagine that the money that's in a work fund, they don't know what a work fund is, number one, and so they've never heard anybody that was involved with a work fund, and then they've certainly never heard someone who actually went back home from the mission field or retired. Circumstances became such they couldn't fulfill obligations in a way that's made them happy, like your situation was, your wife being disabled. And so them hearing that you turned the work fund back over to the Martinsville Church of Christ and that there was $9,500 in it, and I can actually prove that part. It really doesn't matter how much was in there. That's basically the procedure. So for this individual who we have it on tape trying to take over the Martinsville Church of Christ and failed, then to say that the money that was in the work fund was his money, and because he was not allowed to take it out, that it was stolen from him, that would need to be proven, wouldn't you say, as a person who has been involved with a work fund and has set a great example of how to handle it when you're done?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, and like I've heard you say before, whose name was the account in the first place? That seems like it would solve the matter anyway.
Well, the problem ends up being, Mark, is that brethren throughout the Church of Christ just don't have any knowledge of evangelism. They don't have any knowledge of churches being planted, and they don't know any missionaries. And so they're just basically going off what little knowledge that they have. But your statement is exactly right. The work fund was called Martinsville Church of Christ Preachers Fund. And it was actually set up by me and one of the other members originally because we didn't think there was going to be enough brethren to actually make up a salary. And so we started putting money in that 2 years ahead of time to make sure that the salary was augmented, or if we came up short, we would have something to draw from. And so ultimately, this one person began to use that, and evidently he started using it for his personal funds, that's on him. But before you came in, we were actually covering that if I stole that person's cars and I really did steal them, then it would be simple for the authorities. I mean, you wouldn't even have to have a lawyer. You just come in and show that the cars are owned by you, and boom, it's over. And so that can't be done. So there must be some other factors. So,
yeah.
All right. So, Mark, I do appreciate you actually speaking to. Now, Mark is not a witness to anything associated with this work fund. Mark is just an individual who is telling you, as a person who worked as an evangelist in a brand new congregation, how it is with the work fund and what you do when you finish. Okay. Appreciate you, Mark.
Appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. Now, the person that sent me that text probably could still be listening, because we are on YouTube. Regardless of where you are, you can be listening in your car. And so, again, I'm saying, if you believe one witness and that's all there is, I don't need your kind of Christianity. Like, you're basically bothering me with your sinful behavior. And so there is no witness besides the one individual. None of the brethren here have borne witness for at least 170 days. They have not verified what this individual is saying. And if they start verifying now, some of the individuals who maybe have been upset over some other stuff, if they start saying that they are witness to it, they really don't. They're really not, because they don't know the inner workings of the finances of the Martinsville Church of Christ. There's only a handful of individuals who know the working of the finances. So I hope that satisfied that, and I hope it didn't throw us to the point where we don't end up getting through the rest of our business. And so for our brethren also that know us, it would be nice if y'all would pay attention to our schedule and realize that we're actually teaching an entire, there's no telling how many people are viewing. But between now and tomorrow, there will be 300 or 400 people that will tune into this class. And so your text during our airtime was very difficult to deal with on the fly. So where were we? We were basically saying that this is the kind of thing that Jacob had to go through. He ends up having a father-in-law who is very dishonest and is accusing him of stealing. And just because he accused him of stealing does not mean that he stole it. This guy is an individual who has been just a very difficult person to deal with the whole time. So now you might say, man, okay, Jacob's life is over and the perplexities associated with it, that's just man, that's over the top. Having to deal with your in-laws like that and all this different trouble that you're having. Well, we're not done. In Genesis chapter 34, he's gone. Jacob is gone from Laban. He's done with Laban. Laban ends up being afraid of Isaac. They make a covenant that he's not going to bother him, and Jacob goes back to his own home. You know, it could be the case that you've lived off from here and you had all kinds of trouble and you came back home and you just said, man, that's really the meaning of the word nostalgia, the idea of coming back home or coming back to a place that you really enjoy. And you're thinking, man, everything's going to be good because I'm back in my regular area where I know all the rules, I know the people, and, you know, I'll be able to work here. That's not necessarily the case. You get to Genesis 34:2, and notice what ends up happening. Jacob has one daughter. Her name is Dinah. Dinah, the daughter of Leah. Now, this is the sister that was given to him in place of Rachel, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. All the stuff that you've been through, you have your father-in-law change your wages 10 times, and you finally get shed of him, separated, and you get yourself back home, and you meet your brother Esau, and he's not mad anymore, and it's kind of like things are going good, and then somebody rapes your daughter when you get home and get settled. Man. So I'm asking you to be thinking about your life right now. As you go through this, I'm saying, seriously, people read their Bibles too fast. People say, well, you know, I'm going to read the Bible through in a year. Well, good. I mean, that's better than not reading it at all. But just the idea of reading your Bible and going through this, I mean, we had one lesson where I actually said 2 minutes and 7 seconds, and it was how long. I basically put it in a scenario where I said somebody had lived this long, and then 7 minutes and 2 seconds, and it was like, how in the world would you know he lived 7 more minutes and 2 seconds? Well, I was actually saying 2 minutes and 7 seconds. I was actually saying you could read that chapter in 2 minutes and 7 seconds. But the stuff that is in that chapter is so phenomenal that you would miss a portion that you need for the rest of your life. I don't know how quick you can actually read Genesis 31 or Genesis 28 to Genesis 31 like we have covered it today. But people are reading it too fast. You need to actually read this information and see what is really going on. Your brother-in-law is basically marrying let's just say your brother-in-law is marrying, or your sister-in-law is marrying the very bottom of the barrel. That's what you were reading when we were talking about Esau marrying Hittites. And so we move over, and these people are cousins right here to the Hittites. They're the Hivites. They're also the children of Ham and Canaan, one of Ham's children. They're actually related to him and not that far back. And so what kind of people are they? Well, the prince of this particular land, Shechem, his son, rapes Jacob's daughter. That's the kind of people they are. That's the kind of people that Esau was marrying. Their relatives are the kind of people that just simply would rape you. Now, here's the way the story ends up going out. And this is not a very good story in the sense of welcome home for Jacob. So basically, Hamor rapes Dinah. And so Simeon and Levi are just not going to let this pass. And so they concoct a plan to basically do something about this. And here's their plan. They know that Shechem and Hamor know that something's going to happen because Jacob is not just any person. Jacob is a very powerful individual. His father Isaac is a very powerful individual. The Philistines demonstrated their fear of him. You need to move away. You have too many things and your power is too great. You need to move away. And he kept on moving until he moved down to Beersheba. So it's not like they think this is just going to lie. They don't know what's going to happen. And so Shechem comes and asks, is there just any way that Hamor can, he loves Dinah. I know he defiled her. This is not according to your custom, but he loves her. He wants to marry her. He just can't do without her. And so Simeon and Levi say, okay, here's how this is going to go. If our custom is that all of our men are circumcised, and in order for you to be related to us and to be in and mixing in and out of our family, and maybe your people being our servants, you're going to have to circumcise all your males. And so Shechem and Hamor, they talk this over, and they're basically saying this is a pretty small thing. I think it's a big thing myself. I can't even imagine this, but evidently they had this down. And so they said, okay, we'll go through this. And let me drop down here and just look at their talk. And you be able to see the kind of people that we're dealing with. When they come up with this idea, notice how they talked as far as this was going to work. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, and said, because he hath defiled Dinah, their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised. So basically, you got the proposition out there. But in this will we consent unto you, if you will be as we be, and every male of you be circumcised. Then we'll give you our daughters, give unto you our daughters, like you can marry more than just Dinah, and we'll take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you'll not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then we're going to take our daughter, and we'll be gone. The words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. The young man deferred not to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable in all the house of his father. Hamor and Shechem, his son, came unto the gate of their city, and they communed with the men of the city. Now listen to the plan that the Hivites are concocting. These men are peaceable with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land and trade therein, for the land, behold, is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wife, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised, and as they are circumcised. Then he basically, this is unwrapping the plan so you can see it. Shall not their cattle in their substance, and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. So you see, they're basically saying, okay, let's do this, and we'll take all their stuff. You know, folks, they did it, and while they were sore, Levi and Simeon and their brethren and men came in and killed them. Now, what I would like to zero in on is this is life right here. Well, we're never going to have a story that's going to end like this. I get that. But the idea that people are not scheming against you right here in your own hometown, you need to realize this is life. And if you basically say, you know what, I shouldn't have to deal with this if I'm a Christian. You know, these health and wealth preachers talking about God puts a hedge around you and can't nobody touch God's anointing and all that stupid, ignorant garbage that they spew out of their pulpits. They don't read the Bible. Can you not see that this is the kind of stuff that one of God's most favored individuals that you read about in the Bible? There is more about Jacob in the book of Genesis, when you really get down to it, than anybody other than Abraham. Jacob takes up passages from Genesis 25 all the way to the end of Genesis. Genesis has 50 chapters in it. And from 25 to 50, you're reading about Jacob. If Jacob is not the primary subject, one of his sons are, until the time he dies, right at the end of the book of Genesis. This is a favored character in the sense that God was looking after him, and he was a faithful individual. Did he ever make mistakes? Absolutely. Was he pressed? Absolutely. This is life. His daughter has just been raped. He's back in his hometown. And these individuals are scheming and planning to take everything he has. And so if you think that a situation arises, like the situation I'm in right now, this text that I got, this has been going on for 170 or 80 days. Individuals basically telling one guy, telling a lot of other people, and a lot of other people taking this hearsay and going with it for 170 days. Tried to take over the Martinsville congregation and couldn't do it, and has gone out and said, well, Johnny stole my cars. Really? That's about the dumbest thing I ever heard anybody believe. Because if I stole his cars, then why can he not just come and talk to the sheriff? I tell you, the sheriff's, I can't think of the sheriff's name this minute. What's the sheriff's name? Lane Perry. Lane, I'm sorry. I know his name very, very well. I have his cell phone number. I couldn't think of his name. I'll give you Lane Perry's cell phone number. I'll send it to you in a text wherever you are. And you can call him up and press charges. If I stole your cars, well, evidently, we both know I didn't steal his cars, because there's not hardly anybody that's inept enough to go 170 days with the cars being stolen and nobody's doing anything about it. I mean, you don't even really have to have a lawyer if you can prove that you own the cars. Well, technically, okay, now we're getting into technicalities, and see, individuals don't know that story. Now, am I chafing individuals all over the place? That call came from Arizona. People from all over the place. That text came from Arizona, asking me questions about whether or not this stuff is true. Now, I don't like it, and I've just had to put up with it. I don't really have to put up with it. I mean, I could change this scenario in a heartbeat. I'll just basically tell some of you how. I'm not going to tell you what I would do. Sean just got back to work, and many of you have actually heard me talk about Sean in the past. Sean is a great tech guy, knows computers better than anybody I've ever met, and I've met a lot. And he just got back on board, and I have this guy's computer that is making up all this stuff, and the computer actually has 2014 and back stuff on it. And I guarantee you, it is bloated with stuff that he never wants anybody to say, well, what's the problem with it? Well, it went down. But when a computer goes down and you hand it to Sean, it comes back up. That's just all there is to it. So I could actually put a stop to this and put him in such a position that he would actually be getting all kinds of phone calls himself, and no one would believe a thing that he said ever after that. And Sean's not the only computer expert in the world, you know. There are other people that have been here this 170 days. I've just chosen not to do it. Why? One of the reasons is because I read my Bible, and I realize that this is a part of being a Christian. You have to put up with reproach. And have we not seen enough scriptures this morning where the Bible says that God sees you, God sees you, God sees you? 2 Chronicles 16:9. The eyes of Jehovah run to and fro throughout the entire world to show himself strong for those whose heart is perfect before him. Perfect does not mean sinlessly perfect. It means basically a person who is doing like Jacob, like Noah, and like Job. That is the word that is being used. It's a person who has integrity and lets God take care of vengeance. Man, let me tell you, I have seen some bad stuff happen to people that have been my enemies in the past. I was not involved in it. I'm not saying that God did it. I'm just saying it happened. And I wouldn't have wished this stuff on my worst enemy's worst enemy. So just deal with it. Why? You see this? Had his wages changed 10 times, and he put up with it. And God blessed him, took care of him in the long run, and now he gets back home and somebody rapes his daughter. And so they intend to steal everything that he has, mix and mingle, and end up taking everything they have. Now, Jacob is not happy when Levi and Simeon end up doing what they do. Look at verse 30. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, should he deal with our sister as a harlot? So you see what Jacob is actually saying. I mean, you're getting the feel for Jacob's dilemmas, are you not? It's like, guys, he's got these sons, they're grown, they have a mind of their own, and they take this into their own hands, and they deal out punishment to the Shechemites, or actually the Hivites is what they are in a broader sense, but their family is Shechem, and they end up being called Shechemites throughout the rest of the Bible as you're going through it. And he says, man, y'all have really caused me a lot of trouble. I'm not commenting on that. I just am reading what he said. You make me stink in front of all these other people. And so really, you know, we use idioms like that. People cannot stand the sight of you and things of that nature. And Jacob is worried. These Hivites have lots of relatives. So who are their relatives? The Hittites, all the Canaanites. And here we are, come in here from Mesopotamia on the other side of the Euphrates, and we've settled in and around here. And Abraham has a great reputation. Isaac has a good reputation, but some people are scared of him. He's got some enemies. Pretty much everybody respected Abraham so much. You can read in Genesis 24 where Abraham got ready to bury his wife Sarah, and they were just rolling over themselves to give him the land. And he ended up buying some land from an individual that was an Amorite and had a good relationship with them, but he had to still be careful. He wasn't marrying these individuals either. So now you're hearing him say, look, this is really going to cause me trouble. Now you might be saying, well, surely that's the end of that. Well, that's 34. Now 35, look at this, 35 verse 19. Not very long, Rachel died. So now your wife dies. She's having your last child, Benjamin, and she dies in childbirth. And she was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. So he buries his wife on the side of the road, basically. The others, everybody is buried in the cave of Machpelah. Even Joseph said, don't leave my bones in Egypt. Bring me back and bury my bones with our fathers. They're all buried, with the exception, I don't know where Rebekah's buried. The Bible doesn't talk about Rebekah dying. I don't know where she's buried. But these other patriarchs, they're being buried in the cave of Machpelah. Esau and Jacob buried their dad Isaac in the cave of Machpelah in Mamre. And here we are on the way to Hebron, and she dies in childbirth. And they bury her along the way, the Bible says. And so Genesis 35:19, Rachel dies. Genesis 35:22, it's like, probably you're at home saying, this can't continue. Well, I've got a couple of minutes. It can continue. Genesis 35:22, and it came to pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went in and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. Who's Israel? Well, Jacob's name has been changed to Israel along the way. We'll cover that in another episode. But we're moving right along here. You see the life of Jacob? His oldest son ends up having an affair with one of his wives in Genesis 35. Your wife dies, add insult to injury. Your son ends up going to bed with one of your other wives. Genesis 37. And it's like, you're saying now by this time, what? It's just like, who would want to be a Christian if this is the kind of stuff that you're telling us that we're going to have to live through? I'm not telling you you're going to have to live through it. I'm just telling you what an individual who was one of God's favored servants, who was faithful and is an example of being faithful, and gives you an idea of why God actually planned to use him to accomplish great things. The question is, we're not talking about just you living through this. We're talking about you living through this and doing great things for the cause of Christ. It's like you don't get to go and pout just because things don't work out. You read the account of Jacob's life from 25 to 37. What's in 37? His son is kidnapped. Joseph, his favorite son. Is it all right to have favorite sons? I'm not commenting on this, but this is the son of Rachel. Remember, she was barren, and all these other wives were having all these other children. And finally, Rachel has Joseph. And then she has Benjamin, and she dies. And Joseph is the son of his old age. Benjamin is the son of his old age. And Joseph is kidnapped. Well, he doesn't know it. We do. His other sons were involved in it. They hated Joseph. And when he came to check on them for their dad, to see how things were doing, not to see if they were being bad, just to check on them, and they said, here comes the dreamer. And they planned on killing him. But a couple of the individuals, Judah and Simeon, I believe, and Reuben, they talked differently, like, let's don't kill him, let's make money out of him. And one of the other of them, Reuben, I believe, intended to come back and actually get him out of the pit and deliver him. And by the time he got back, they'd already sold him to the Ishmaelites. How about that, Jacob? This stuff just continues to happen to Jacob. And it just, folks, if you haven't gotten it by now, this is the kind of stuff. Genesis chapter 38, 29 and 30, Judah ends up cohabitating with his own daughter-in-law. And it's known, basically, Genesis 42, I'd like to end with this. Genesis 42, verse 36. There's a famine in the land, and Jacob sends his sons down to Egypt. Joseph ends up being co-regent, and he recognizes them, and he treats them badly, and he basically holds Simeon back and tells the others to go back to their father, and when they come back to get more grain in Egypt, don't come back without the youngest son. And so we find Jacob hearing this and realizing that he is about to have more happen to him. And Jacob, their father, said unto me, me have you bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, Simeon is not, and you will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. But y'all, he didn't give up. And that's really what this is about. The whole of our discussion and the whole of our study and the whole of our Christian life, it is about don't give up. Now, this is going to be archived. It'll basically be the life of Jacob, all the hardships is probably what the title will be, something like that, Genesis 28 through, we went all the way to 42. And so you can find it on YouTube in the Genesis playlist. You can get in touch with me, joeblue81@gmail.com. My cell phone number is 276-806-2150. You can text me for any of the things that we give away. What you need to always do is ask for what does the Bible say. God bless you. Good afternoon.